again, Jillian Speaks. This is a heart-to-heart Monday and our weekly space where we have honest conversations about love, relationship, healing, self-worth, and emotional experiences many people quietly carry in their hearts. If you're new here, welcome. And of course, just let me remind you that this is a voice podcast where we talk openly about love, relationships, healing, personal growth, and emotional realities many of us experience but rarely discuss. So, this place is for honest conversations. There's no judgment, no pretending, just real discussion about the things that shape our lives and our relationships. So, wherever you're listening from today, whether you're driving to work, taking a walk, sitting with a cup of tea or coffee, or simply needing a quiet moment to yourself, thank you for being here with us. Today's Heart to Heart Monday episode is called How Childhood Wounds Follow Us into Adult Relationships. Now, before anyone becomes uncomfortable hearing the word childhood, let me reassure you that this episode is not about blaming parents, okay? It's not about finding someone to blame for every problem in our lives, okay? So it's about understanding, because sometimes the patterns we struggle with as adult began long before we ever entered our first relationship. Because sometimes the fears we carry today were born years ago. And understanding those fears is often the first step towards healing and towards working on them. For our first segment, we're going to be talking about the relationship patterns that we don't understand. So, have you ever looked at your own behavior in a relationship and wondered, why am I like this? Like, why do I get so anxious when somebody or someone doesn't reply? Or why do I overthink everything? Why am I terrified of being abandoned? Why do I struggle to start trusting or to trust people even when they've done nothing wrong? Why do I keep choosing emotional unavailable partners? And lastly, why do I constantly need reassurance? And many people assume these behaviors appear out of nowhere, but often they don't. They come from experiences. And many of those experiences happen during childhood, because long before we learn how to love someone romantically, we're learning what love feels like. We're learning whether people can be trusted. We're learning whether our emotions matter. We're learning whether we're safe expressing ourselves. We're learning whether love feels secure or uncertain. And those lessons often stay with us, sometimes for decades. So in the next segment, we're going to talk about a child who learned love had conditions. So let's imagine a child growing up in an environment where praise only came when they performed well. Maybe they received affection when they achieved something. Good grades, good behavior, success. But when they struggled, affection became limited. Approval became harder to earn. Without realizing it, that child may grow up believing that I have to earn love. Think about that belief affects adult relationship. They become people pleasers. They overextend themselves. They constantly try to prove their worth. And they give and give and give. Not because they're weak, but because someone deep inside, they learn that love must be earned. So they spend adulthood trying to deserve what should never have required earning in the first place. And this is when the next segment will go through. It's when love felt unpredictable. For some people, childhood love felt innocent. And some days everything felt fine. Other days things felt tense, unpredictable, chaotic. But maybe there was a frequent conflict at home. Maybe emotional support wasn't always available. And maybe they never knew that what version of someone they would encounter. And as adults, this individual often becomes highly alert in relationships. They're always scanning for danger, always looking for signs that something is wrong, always preparing for disappointments. And here is the difficult part. When they find healthy love, their nervous system may still expect instability. So they overthink, they worry, they question, not because they're trying to create problems, because their mind learned long ago that safety wasn't guaranteed. Let's pause for a moment here. I want you to think about your own childhood. Not to criticize it, not to judge it. It's just simply observe it. When you were upset, who comforted you? Like when you make mistakes or when made mistakes, how were you treated? When you were afraid, did you feel safe asking for help? When you were emotional, were your feelings respected? Take a moment to think about those questions, because often the way we were treated as children influences what we expect from the relationships as adults. Sometimes we don't even realize it. We just keep repeating patterns that once helped us survive, but no longer help us to thrive. And in connection to this next segment is called the fear of abandonment. So one of the most common childhood wounds that follows people into adulthood is the fear of abandonment. And this fear doesn't always come from someone physically leaving. Sometimes it comes from emotional absence, feeling unseen, feeling unheard, feeling forgotten. As adults, people carrying abandonment wounds often struggle with anxiety in relationships, right? A delayed text message feels alarming. Like a change in tone feels threatening. Like distance feels dangerous for some of us. And while others may not understand the reaction, the fear feels very real. Because beneath the surface isn't just today's situation. It's years of accumulated experiences whispering it to you. Like, what if they leave too? And that can be exhausting, not only for the relationship, but for the person carrying that fear. So, in continuation with the next segment, this is why some people keep choosing the wrong partners. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to repeat the same relationship over and over again? Different person, same outcome. Different face, same pain. And many times, this happens because what feels familiar often feels attractive. When it's more, even if it's unhealthy. You know, this is one of the most surprising truths about the relationships. We don't always choose what is healthy. Sometimes we choose what feels familiar. So if the chaos feels familiar, stability may feel strange. If emotional distance feels familiar, the healthy closeness may feel uncomfortable. if the inconsistency feels familiar, reliability may seem boring. And this doesn't mean we're doomed to repeat old patterns. But it does mean awareness is important, because awareness allows us to make different choices. And this is where the next segment, which is the way of being the strong one. So the way of being a strong one, some children learn very early that they have to be strong. Maybe they cared for siblings, maybe they supported struggling parents, like the breadwinners. Maybe they became the responsible one in the family, the helper, the fixer, the caretaker, And as adults, these individuals often struggle to receive the support. They're comfortable giving, they're uncomfortable receiving. They're the person everyone leans on, but they rarely lean on anyone else's. In relationships, they become more emotional caretaker, always helping, always understanding, always supporting, and yet wishing someone would do the same for them. And the problem is that strength becomes so familiar that vulnerability starts feeling uncomfortable. A healthy relationship requires both strength and vulnerability, giving and receiving, supporting and being supported. So here's the good news. Understanding our wounds does not mean we're trapped by them. In fact, awareness is where healing begins. Once you recognize a pattern and you can start changing it, you can ask yourself, why does this trigger me? Why am I reacting this way? Or is this fear about the present? Or is this connected to something older? And these questions are very powerful, everyone, because they help separate today's reality from yesterday's pain. And that's where growth happiness. So one of the most beautiful parts of the healing is learning to give yourself what you may not have received in the past. So it's more of like learning to reparent yourself, learning to speak kindly to yourself, learning to comfort yourself, to validate your emotions, to create healthy boundaries, and learning that your worth is not dependent on performance, perfection, or approval. This process may take some time, because it requires patience, it requires compassion, but it is possible. You're not stuck being the version of yourself that was shaped by pain. You can become the version of yourself that shaped by healings. So if you're listening today and you recognize part of yourself in this episode, I want you to know something. There is nothing wrong with you. Your reactions often make sense when you understand where they're coming from. Your fears make sense. Your protective habits make sense. Your emotional pattern makes sense. The goal is not to judge yourself. The goal here is to understand yourself. Because understanding creates compassion, and the compassion creates healing. So, on my final reflection, before we finish this today's conversation, I'd like to leave you a few questions. First is, what relationship pattern do you keep repeating? What fear shows up most often in your relationship? What did you look like when you were growing up? And perhaps most importantly, question is, what part of yourself still needs healing? Not fixing, not criticizing, healing. Because healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming more fully yourself. All right, so hey everyone, I'd like to thank you very much for joining me for another Heart to Heart Monday here on When Jillian Speaks. And I hope today's episode helped you to understand that many of our relationship patterns don't begin in adulthood. Okay, they begin much earlier. And while we cannot change the past, we learn from it. We can heal from it. And we can choose different paths moving forward. So if today's conversation resonated with you, please consider sharing it with someone who may need to hear it. And you can listen up to When Jillian Speaks on YouTube, available on Spotify and Amazon Music. And also, if you'd like to share your own story, our anonymous story submission forms can be found on our Facebook page and Instagram account. So your story may help another listener to realize they're not alone. And if you'd like to support this podcast, you may also grab a copy of my book. It's called I Never Gave Myself, which is available through Amazon.com, or check out on our website, which is the whenjillianspeaks.com.au. Thank you very much for spending the part of your day with me. Take care of your heart, be patient with your healing, and remember, understanding yourself is not a sign of weakness. It's one of the greatest acts of self-love. And this is Jillian. You've been listening to When Jillian Speaks. I'll talk to you in the next Heart to Heart Monday. Bye.